thank you everybody for taking the time to join us today. We live in uncertain times, obviously, with the COVID issue, the pandemic in general, and things are changing at a very, very fast pace. And what that means for us as businesses is that we need to keep up. We have no option. Technology is one of the small and simple things that we can use during this pandemic to address the disruption that we're all facing. And this talk today about MVPs in particular it's very relevant in the sense that because of the pace of change, no business can afford to wait 6 months, a year to build their solution. You've got to work and move at warp speed. You've got to move quickly. There are no options here. We think that you can build an MVP in days or weeks, not in months. We've seen it done before. We've got many examples to share with you today. And we are also going to show you during this discussion and during the subsequent discussion, what we're going to call part 2, how we will also be able to help you do it in future. But for now, Builds, the sponsor of this talk, Builds is all about helping organizations like yours, startups and small businesses, and also large businesses, build their technology. We're all about providing end-to-end project management that helps you to manage the resources, define your requirements, but also address the quality issues that inevitably come up. And of course, the discipline also to define an MVP, because an MVP is by definition simple, but it doesn't compromise on quality. It doesn't compromise user experience. In fact, it goes to the heart of user experience and the user requirements. My name is Segun Osu. I've been running startups. Well, I've launched 2 startups, I should say, and I've been helping startups for roughly 15 years. We have myself and Alex, who I'll introduce in a moment. Between us, we've got about 30 years experience helping startups to build their technology, and also experience beyond startups, of course, with large organizations. I was at Gartner for 5 years, where I ran Gartner's technology vendor marketing division across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I have a deep interest in outsourcing, born out of curiosity, born out of an experience that I had on a train, believe it or not, in Italy. I was traveling, and this elderly couple offered me a book entitled The World is Flat. That was about 15 plus years ago. And it was all about the internet, all about how the internet would revolutionize the way that we work. And here we are today, working remotely, working precisely in the way that this book predicted. And in many respects, using outsourcing and outsourcing resources from anywhere in the UK, anywhere in the world, embracing the best of the best of the best, wherever it might be, without restriction. My other interest, of course, is Agile. Agile is what we use to manage our business and to make sure that our past projects are delivered on time, within budget, and to the required quality. Before I blow my trumpet any further, let me hand over to Alex. Alex, talk a little about yourself and maybe set the scene for what we will expect next.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Segun. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Alex. I'll describe myself as a technologist. I've worked as a technology advisor to many government departments, banks, but also startups, which is where I'm really passionate about. I've been dealing with a lot of MVP creation and launches, and I've launched my own 2 startups so far in the technology space. And I've worked with offshore agencies and invested my own money, so I have good perspectives from both sides as someone who manages projects for others, but also as a founder. So we'll share today with you some of the interesting new trends in developing MVPs and what we call ultra MVP. and the whole focus is about, of course, delivering value as early as possible. So we'll cover some of these new topics there. We'll give you some practical kind of examples as well. Also, how we fit the quality, our specially designed quality assurance framework into the kind of MVPs. We'll talk about Lowcode as well. And then in part two, we'll give you an offer on actually sitting down with you, looking at your needs, and depending on if you already started your project or you're about to start, so we can really have a look and give you some impartial advice on what the best route to get something really up there on the market very, very quickly and on budget. So with that said, I would just want to quickly run the poll with you. It will appear on your screen. So just to give an early indication on how many people would potentially like to book us some time with us for part two, and so we can discuss your specific needs. So this will be a series of one-to-one discussions with us. It's not going to be a whole in.
We might also do a group because there might not be enough time to do individual one-to-ones, but we are aiming to make sure that if it is a group, that there are breakout rooms as well. Okay.
Fair enough. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So just leave it for a few more seconds to get people in, and okay. Okay, I think we're pretty much done there. So I'll
voted so far. 7% people have voted. Just give it another. Actually, it's 60% voted.
Yeah, just in case someone's not familiar with this whole mechanics, it should be a simple message. You see it, just click, and that's it. Okay, so I'll close the poll. Again, you can always contact us directly after the webinar on the emails provided. So this is
great.
We just okay. So we got a good interest in people wanting to have a bit more tailored discussion on their needs, which is great. Okay.
Now, so we ask the next question a bit later, just to save a bit of time.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So Shogun, over to you if you want to discuss a little bit more on the concept of Ultra MVP.
Okay. So I think the biggest question that we ought to be asking ourselves is, can we afford to delay the launch of a new business? Can we afford to delay the launch of a new customer feature simply because it's going to take 6 months, simply because the development team have told us that they can't do it in less than 6 months? And that is typical for most mobile apps. Between 4 and 12 months is typically how long it takes to build something using native code or using what you would deem to be the traditional method of building a mobile app. Now, if that is your benchmark, if your benchmark is 4 to 12 months, your business will not be viable in that time frame. Your business or your customers or the customers that you hoped to gain will go to somebody else. Your benchmark should be the benchmark set by the best of the best of the best, both in terms of quality, but also in terms of timing. In terms of timing, some of the best organizations are taking weeks to deliver their MVPs. They're taking days to deliver improvements to their user experience. Some organizations are delivering changes multiple times a day. Okay, they've got thousands of engineers, we know, okay? But the concept here is that what they're doing is they're stripping the requirements back to the bare minimum. And they're saying to themselves, what exactly do we need? What do we need in terms of time? Okay, so time is a premium. Time is at a premium. We don't have time to waste. We've got to build something within a certain time frame. What do we have in terms of budget? And what are the precise features, okay, that people are looking for that will excite them, that will generate ROI for us, that will keep people coming back and create customer loyalty? Now, the other benchmark, okay, is the benchmark around quality and regarding features. This benchmark is set outside of your organization. So if you are delivering an app or an experience that involves, for example, messaging, Slack or WhatsApp is the benchmark that your customers have become accustomed to. They're not going to settle for anything less. If it's a shopping experience, then we're talking Amazon. If it's anything to do with, the concept of being kept logged in, then the Facebook single and persistent login. If it's anything to do with biometrics, then again, it's what you find on your device today. These are the benchmarks that your customers are expecting. They're not going to settle for anything less. But the problem is, how long will it take you to build these things? And is there a better way? Well, we think that there is. In fact, we know that there is. Okay. You don't need to spend 6 months building your MVP with these features. You can have biometrics. You can have single persistent login. You can have a messaging experience similar to that you'll find with WhatsApp or Slack. You can have a shopping experience similar to that you'll find with Amazon. And you can have a social experience similar to that you'll find with Facebook. It isn't rocket science. It's here and it's now. And if we think about how to do this, if we think about the way that this is going to be achieved, it's a two-step process. But before I go into that two-step process, or before I go into that process, because it's actually more than 2 steps, okay, let me share with you just a few examples that are really close to my heart because they're local to me, okay? So if anybody's familiar with the, I think it's the flower show, the Chelsea or the Royal Flower Show, the one that happens in London every year, it's massive. Well, the company behind that is a charity. They own gardens across the UK, and they own a massive garden. It's like 100, 200 hectares in Surrey, not far from where I live. And during lockdown, they had this problem. The problem was they needed to monitor how many people were coming into the garden. So they imposed a booking system. Believe it or not, you had to book online. It's a paid-for park, okay? It's a paid-for garden, but they didn't have a booking system before lockdown. They introduced the booking system in 7 days. 7 days to get what would normally have taken a month, maybe 3, done. But they focused on the essentials. Simple things like being able to cancel your booking were not included in the first week. That was added later. It was added in week 2, week 3, week 4. Okay, but the concept here is that it was a progressive build. They launched a minimum viable product on day 1, in days. David Lloyd's, the gym, they've got something like, I don't know if it's hundreds or thousands of locations across the UK, but they had the same problem with lockdown. It took them 2 weeks to launch their app, 2 weeks to get from 0 to a fully functional minimum viable product. Now, I'll tell you a little later how they did that, okay? A whole country, Jordan, the reason I've mentioned Jordan is because I was there a few years ago and I enjoyed it, and it's a beautiful country. They got their entire secondary and primary school population online in 7 days. It's unbelievable. These are projects that would normally have taken years, okay? And the stories go on, the examples go on. The University of Bologna in Italy, they got 80,000 students online in 3 days. Google these examples. University of Bologna, the country of Jordan, maybe David Lloyd's, but those 2 are definitely online, okay? So it can be done. And, if you jump to the next slide, Alex, please, you'll see that basically, if you think about the complexity involved here, it's not that complex. It's about focusing the mind. It's about focusing your attention on what is truly important. Are you looking to get from A to B? If you're looking to get from A to B, that's your business goal, or that's the offer, the USP that you're offering your customers. You are not looking to create or to launch as your MVP a car with 4 wheels. What you are looking for, if you're looking to launch in 10 days, is you're looking for the equivalent of a skateboard. It achieves the objective. That car took 10 decades, not 10 days. Look at Facebook. Facebook's MVP, okay, when they started was a bunch of forums where you could just book and post messages to your friends. That's all it was. It was as flimsy as that. Look at them today. Groupon, Groupon, the massive organization that we know as Groupon, they started with WordPress, and they emailed PDFs to subscribers. The stories go on. Uber. Now, okay, the example I have for Uber is really, it's limited to the fact that, you know, they had a decent website, but they restricted their operations to just one city, and they focused on one platform, iOS, just that single platform. So you get the point. It's one of those things, okay, that if you try hard enough, if you focus on what is absolutely essential, and you set yourself a time frame and you stick to it like a hawk, you can launch something, you can achieve your objective. But it's not just about scope, it's also about the platform, and that's where I'm going next on the next slide. The truth about technology, though, is that if you think about how many new applications are going to be required over the next 5 years, I think it's Microsoft's boss, CEO, Satya Nadella. He said in his investor report this year, actually in October, that there will be a need for at least 500 million new applications within the next 5 years. Now, that's incredible, because that is significantly more than the number of new applications that have been built in the last 40 years. So think about it, okay? There is already a shortage of talent, and that shortage is going to get worse over the next few years, because there's going to be a bigger need for more applications to be built. What are the options? Well, one big option that a lot of organizations have been focused on, and we're not the only organizations that's been focused on this, of course, but you know, much larger organizations such as Gartner, is low-code. So the use of low-code, or the ability, for example, to define existing elements and use them as part of your code, okay, is one of those things that will help to take away the pressure from the existing development population and allow businesses to develop their applications at warp speed. So low code is one of those things that will help. In fact, Gartner claims that about 65 or more % of applications will be built using low code platforms within the next 3 years, so 3 years. So by 2024, 65 to 68% is a big number compared to what we have today. But it didn't start this whole idea of using low code. It didn't start today. It started 20, 30 years ago. In fact, I remember years and years ago when I was, I did a bit of coding in my time, but you know, back then I used something called Visual Basic. And Visual Basic, what it allowed you to do is it allowed you to identify objects and drag and drop them as if they were code. Okay, you have to do a little bit of coding as well, but the general idea was that you could identify an object and use it as if you had written the code. So you'd basically be able to develop something that would normally have taken a week within days. That's the idea that is now much more readily available, but in a much more sophisticated format, so that you can develop something at warp speed that is high quality, that is fit for purpose, and that will wow your clients. This is the reality today. The payback from this whole operation is significant. Think about it. Instead of having 10 developers, have 3. Instead of waiting 6 months, wait 1. Instead of spending 60,000, spend 6. This is the type of cost saving, the type of time saving, the type of resource saving that low code plus an MVP approach will afford you. So, idea to MVP in 10 days? Probably. Idea to MVP in 1 month? Definitely. Idea to MVP in 12 years? that belongs to 2015, 2010, 2000 maybe, but certainly not to 2021. And if you think about how this will be achieved, if you think about the way that these low-code development platforms actually work, think also about my first degree, by the way, was in civil engineering. I practiced as a civil engineer, project management for years. And within civil engineering, we've got this whole idea of modular building, okay? Let the heavy lifting be done, okay, by somebody else. Get a prefabricated component for your bridge. Get a prefabricated component for your house. Don't create your house brick by brick. Do it wall by wall. Bring in a whole wall, okay, rather than a bricklayer to lay the bricks. This is the equivalent of low code. You're bringing in a whole component. You're letting the platform do the heavy lifting for you. You're bringing in a whole wall instead of getting a bunch of bricklayers to make the wall for you. Now, of course, there are some limitations, and Alex is going to talk about the limitations and how these limitations can be overcome. But the general idea is that you're going to save a ton of time, you're going to save a ton of work, and the workload on your existing developers will be significantly less. And think about it, okay? Reinventing the wheel, reinventing a piece of code. Why would you want to do that? The trend today is already to reuse code if you can. The trend today is already about the use of a modular approach to building. Low code takes it to another point, to a much more organized point, okay, whereby you can truly build things in days rather than months or weeks. I am, in terms of time, Lucas, how are we doing? Because I know we started a bit late. Can't hear Lucas. Okay.
We're about 7:10 p.m. right now.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Yep.
Okay,
welcome.
so I'm gonna whiz through very quickly the last part of what I'm going to talk about, and then I'll hand over to Alex. But before we do that, okay, can we ask people who is actually planning an MVP right now? You know, who's got that on their minds? So 20% of people have voted so far. We're nearer to 50% now. There's a lot of interest around that 3-month mark. I think a lot of people are looking to the new year. Some people are unsure.
Yeah, don't review before that. Yeah.
Okay, 3 seconds, Alex, and let's close it so we can move on.
Okay, so yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that is always a sweet spot, 3 months. Well, that's interesting because in a traditional build, in a traditional development cycle, okay, what you'll find is that by the time you have gone through the process, so the process being, let's get our requirement spec, let's communicate that requirement spec to a short list of developers or an expert, let's find the developers or the expert in the first place. That typically takes about 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, okay? Then you've got something called discovery, okay, where you're trying to better communicate your requirements to your development team or to your expert. That whole discovery process typically takes 4 weeks. 8 plus 4 equals 12 weeks, and that is all before a single line of code has been written, okay? So a lot of organizations are spending that period of time, 3 months, just trying to figure out what they want to do. And what we're saying is that with low code and a ruthless approach to your MVP, okay, you can do what we call a 4-day design discovery process. The 4-day design discovery process is based on something that Google uses, which is a 7-day process, after which you will get a working prototype. A working prototype after 7 days is the benchmark that Google has. They're the, kind of world-class benchmark. And what we're saying is that after 4 days on a low-code platform, okay, you will get a high-fidelity prototype. So it's not an MVP yet, okay, but it's a high-fidelity prototype that allows you to basically do away with much of what normally happens during discovery, okay? But at the end of that process, you get something that's actually useful. Now, after that, the normal low-code process continues. So there's the use of the existing elements and some code. And what you're doing there is you are building your MVP. You're building an MVP, okay, that will help you achieve your goals in days or weeks, not months, not years. A fully fledged MVP at the end of, for example, a month is very, very possible. A fully fledged MVP after 10 days, depending on your requirements, is also possible, okay? And Alex is going to, like I said, talk about some of the limitations in a moment. But the key thing here is that it can be done, and there's a process to do it. The one thing to guard against is that, this thing called low code, and some people call it no code, but it's never no code. There's always code involved. This thing is a bit of a mystery for some developers and agencies. And, the reason it's a mystery is quite simple. Turkeys don't vote for Christmas, okay? If you are, and you have this as your primary skill, you spend the last 10, 15 years learning how to code, the last thing you're going to do is to subcontract your expertise to a low-code platform or a no-code platform. And I'm as guilty as anyone. Back then, when I did my little coding with Visual Basic, the last thing I wanted to do, okay, was to admit that, everything had to be, done with the elements. No, I did a lot of coding as well. Back in those days, you could actually drop by the Microsoft office and ask questions. Believe it or not, they had an office. This was in Milan, in Italy, by the way. And you could stop at their office and ask them questions. You could go in and get advice. It was amazing, really. And it wasn't in 1980, by the way. It was in the late 90s. Okay, not that far, not that long ago. But the point here is, that most developers will not talk about this because it undermines their profession. And think about it: if you're a professional, your primary allegiance is to your craft, is to your profession, not to the business. What we're saying is that if you are building something, what you want is you want to be able to build based on the goals that you have as a business, not based on the goals that some professional has to feel good about their craft or to feel good about the code that they've written. This is about business, and it's about getting results, and it's about getting results sooner rather than later, because we are in a world that is full of turmoil. Things are moving much, much more quickly than they used to, and that will not stop, okay? Think about the examples I gave you. University of Bologna, 4 days to get all their students online. The country of Jordan, 2 million school children learning online within a week. That pace is now expected. That pace is now established as the new norm. And there are many examples here in the UK that we can talk about, but don't have time to. I will hand over, okay, having said all of that, okay, to Alex in a second, who will talk about this whole idea of, using low code and what the restrictions are, because you can easily back yourself into a corner. If you've chosen the wrong technology, you still need developers. You still need that technical eye to figure out the right platform that will help you to achieve your goals. you still need some code. You still need help. And here is Alex, who's going to talk about some of the limitations, like I said, and specifically what we mean by no code or low code.
Okay, thanks, Shagan. So, I've played around with a few of those as well. So, any screenshots you see there, it's all real screenshots from real systems. A very quick definition: what is a no low code platform? It's basically a system where it allows you visually to put things together, connect few things, create your app based from, it's like playing with Lego sets, effectively, construction sets. It's some of them are very intuitive, others a little bit more kind of a geeky to find your way around. It's just but the good thing is there's a choice of those around. So that's been kind of covered already, but I really like that picture because it demonstrates the whole kind of a flexibility versus speed approach. Obviously, constructing a building with pre-built panels, you can build it really, really quick. However, if you say you wanted 2 windows instead of 3 here, well, you find yourself, slowing the whole project quite a bit. So I've kind of classified some of those systems. So no code, again, very cautious about the whole no code approach. Nothing is completely zero code, although a lot of systems claim they are. But the more you go towards coding, heavier coding, you increase your flexibility so you can build it exactly the way you want it. However, the speed suffers, so it will take you much. And speed is aligned with cost, of course, right? Because that means you get professionals to do it for you, and the whole project management aspect. So one of the major benefits of this high fidelity prototypes is you can actually very quickly do that one single meaningful journey of your users, something that your MVP wants to do. And as you can see here on the screenshots I've taken, this is a very sample app I've created. I don't know, it took me about probably 2 days put down there. But the great thing about it is at any point I can share my app as kind of PWA effectively with anyone else who's working on the same thing. So I can demonstrate my concept very, very quickly. Sometimes that's a problem when you do bespoke code development. And also, if you want to publish your prototype as a PWA, that could be done instantly. That takes like minutes. And then obviously, if you want to package it and publish it as a proper native app, that will take some more time to get it all approved in the markets. But PWA works as a treat. You can download it in your phone and you can just play with it, and it works absolutely fantastic. Some of these systems just gives you the idea of flexibility here and speed, most importantly. So some word of caution and some kind of claims that you may see on different systems. Yeah, I mean, a lot of systems say it's all designed for non-coders. And I guess you can progress well up to a certain point, but you still need to have that sort of logical and engineering thinking, not necessarily to know a language of programming, but sometimes you may need to complement your stuff with a bit of coding. The worst thing is really if you get stuck in this kind of corner moment where you just don't know how to implement certain things, you don't know how to put that second window in the one window panel, and it gets really frustrating because you need to find the right people, not only knowing how to code, but also knowing that particular system very, very well. So that's something which you again, as I said here on the second line, there's this kind of risk of a dead end moment where you basically get stuck and you don't find enough support in your community, the community kind of support of or maybe you find a bug which we found before in the platform, and it's being scheduled to be fixed, but it's nowhere near done. So it's one of those kind of cautious. It's great for early ultra MVPs. As we said, it's very easy to iterate and demo it, but in terms of scaling, it does scale to a good kind of a level. We're talking about thousands of end customers if you in that kind of area, but if we're talking about tens and hundreds of thousands, it could it could be problematic. So it depends on the platform, and also very costly as well. Some systems ramp up the costs, the running costs quite rapidly the moment you start. So it's fairly easy to start. You could get templated, kind of screens which are pre-ready, pre-made as well for you, which is good. But if you have anything a little bit more complex than the standard sort of apps out there, it could take you more time. Obviously, you need that expertise in that low-code system. And yeah, so the licenses for those systems, they're fairly affordable, and also you benefit from the very quick development. And as we said, with complexity, bespoke customization, and kind of rolling out to a massive scale, costs can ramp up out of control pretty much. Okay. Finally, NFRs, which is standing for non-functional requirements, things like speed, latency, security, you all get them out of the box, out of this platform, which is great. You don't have to do any specific testing and coding for that, but it's only as good as the platform. So if the platform suddenly gets compromised, the security of it, you're pretty much at risk, your app as well. That's one thing too. So I think the bottom line is, if you're going for a low code solution and platform, just choose something that's been proven and have a good support community and stuff like that. So yeah, so very quickly, I'll use a low code if I really want to get something out of the market very quickly. So produce an ultra MVP, and I need to be able to iterate, flip between screens, interactions, change some stuff on the screens, and I'll also use for anything that's, if my ideas kind of fits into some sort of a common standard set of ideas. I know everyone's unique, but say I can describe it in a few words, that's a good indication you could benefit from a low code, because there's a lot of blocks we can reuse. If you have anything sudden, a specific bespoke business logic, you may need to take that out of the low code, put it onto a specific kind of other module which communicates with your app. But that means you need to spend more on customized kind of development and get some professionals to do it. Again, you gain some speed as well in development, even there. And then if you're really doing something non-trivial, unique, and it's difficult to kind of find those elements in any low code platform, then obviously it's not the right choice for you. Then you need to create everything from scratch, and just that means you're this kind of unfortunate industry. Yes, and also you need to be able, if you want to do it, try it yourself. There's a kind of a rule of thumb here. If you go in a low code system, if you can actually achieve something meaningful in a day, that means good. If it takes you more than 1 or 2 or 3 days yourself, that means maybe not the right choice for you, or maybe it's not a good strategy to use your time to do it. But I'd say, regardless of how easy you find this low code, it's good to outsource it to someone who knows the platform very well and also knows how to build those apps, because that learning curve could be a little bit steep sometimes. So I think that's from me, just giving some bit more kind of practical examples and some kind of word of caution and advice. And I'll switch very quickly back to Shogun to cover very, very quickly our special quality assurance framework which we've developed for such apps. And yeah, we can just continue from there. So Shogun, very quickly, I know we time start, but.
So I'm again very, very conscious of time, and I think anybody who is going to speak to us for part 2 will also cover the quality assurance framework, just so that we can open up for questions, because I know that a lot of people will have questions. So should we open up questions to people in attendance? Let's see who is actually here.
Yeah, you can type your questions here.
Yeah, if you just type in your questions, that way we'll see them. Well, we will see them, not everybody else will see them, and then we will answer them one by one.
So while you're typing, I just wanted to say that I've got an idea of developing a very quick sort of a self-checked tool on whether low-code is a suitable solution for you, as you know, in terms of your ideas and stuff, which I have to get out by the end of this year, so it's very quickly. But you'll be, you will get a link to that as well. It's just a nice tool to kind of evaluate how suitable you are for this technology. Well, not you in particular, your ideas.
Okay.
Project.
Now, one of the questions is basically around what kind of developer you need for a low-code solution. Alex, do you want to grapple with that one?
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I'd say someone who has experience with this particular system of your choice, or can very clearly articulate which low-code systems they're using and how much experience they have with them. So, give an example. We've developed a number of projects on Wix, which sounds just like a templating engine for websites, but actually it provides a lot of interesting functionality behind it. I've been searching for experts here and there. A lot of people claim they know Wix, for example, but when you start asking for a little bit more detailed experience, they all kind of disappear. And that's what I'm after, right? As someone who find myself quite easily around building this kind of elements, I need that expertise. I need someone to tell me, yes, I've seen that problem. I know how to resolve it. I know where to find the answers from. And yes, so not necessarily someone super experienced as a real proper coder and developer, but I would say even someone who fits the profile of business analyst in some cases, someone who can logically think, compose the sort of or decompose the problem into different screens and areas and stuff. That would be a suitable person. So it's not just a developer.
Okay. And just another question. We don't have many questions, but just another one. So compared with a traditional build, if you were to take two MVPs, compared with the traditional build, what amount of time would you save? Is another question. That's a bit difficult, isn't it? Because it depends, really. It depends on what you're looking to build. But, there's every opportunity to save, 50%, 60, 70% of time. But it really does depend. We'd have to look at that as a kind of like part two. If you talk to us in part two about it, we can do a one-on-one and provide a little more insight. Once you've shown us the specification, I think that would be a lot easier.
Yes, unless you're very, very unique in terms of your app is completely nothing seen so far. There's always a case of saving time, even if it's a small amount. But in most cases, you at least half the time, or get it down to like 20-25%, even less than that with low code. So yeah, there's always an opportunity to increase your delivery speed.
Okay. Now, does anybody else have any more questions? Nope.
No, I think that's it.
Not that I'm seeing. Okay. Well, time. What are we? 1931. So we're a minute past. Wow. I at one point I thought that the technology just wouldn't work, and
yeah.
But we got there. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Lucas. We've got this complementary opportunity here that is, very much about booking a discussion slot. So if anybody wants to look at that link at the bottom of the screen, again, you can use that. That will book time in a calendar, maybe with myself or with Alex, where you can talk about your MVP, you can talk about the plan of action, And what we will do for you is very similar to what we'll do in part 2. We just won't do it this year. It would be next year. So this is something that you can book for next year from January the 2nd or 3rd, and it'll put time in our diary automatically to help you with any questions that you might have regarding your MVP. Whereas the part 2 that we discussed earlier is going to take place this year. We're offering that this year for anybody who has booked it already. Okay. So without much more ado, I think we've reached the end of our talk today. And again, thank you, panel and audience. The questions were awesome. Thank you very much for those. And thank you for your patience. And we will see you at another webinar, possibly.
Okay, thank you all. Have a good evening. Bye.